Welcome to the 2022 Kentucky Bourbon Festival and the first edition of the Bourbon 30 Talk Show. This is sponsored by Great Western Malting. Welcome back to the Bourbon 30 Talk Show. Welcome also to the Kentucky Bourbon Festival, the 2022 edition. Everybody having a good time? Woo. Good. It's funny. Again, the sun moves and the crowd gets bigger. The shade gets longer. We'll take that. How's everybody like this breeze today? Good gosh, it was a little hot last couple days.
Yeah.
My name's Steve Coombs. I am the Director of Programming and Content for the Kentucky Bourbon Festival. I'm a whiskey writer by trade, which is how I met these two fellows to the right of me. I get to write about characters like this all the time, which is a blast. I love to talk about how it's made and who made it, and these guys are always silly enough to keep answering my questions, or patient, one of the two, I'm not sure. But it makes my job fun to work around you guys and write about you guys. To my immediate right is a fellow named Royce Neeley. He is the head distiller at Neely Family Distilleries. Is that right?
That's right, man.
Head distiller? Oh, you probably don't have that nice a title at your place.
Yeah, I don't think so. I take out the litter box or anything there, you know.
And to his right is the master distiller at Kentucky Peerless Distilling, Kilburn.
Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for coming, guys. I know you're busy, especially this time of year. Really, any time of year with the pace of bourbon growing, right?
Oh, yeah.
How you like that natural sound? Little Harley Davidson to kind of add to the festival mood, I guess. I'm trying to say. How's business around your booth? People been coming by a lot.
Yeah, man, we've been packed. It's been really good.
Non-stop.
Yeah.
Non-stop. Well, let's talk about your new brand there, Royce. Hidden Barn.
Hidden Barn.
Tell the story behind it. Why that interesting name?
Well, I was getting ready to launch my first 4-year-old product, which everybody out there knows is a big step for any distillery. And I've been talking with Nate Weiniger at 5280 Whiskey Society, and he had come to me and said, I want to start this brand. I have this idea behind it. I want to create sort of like the single barrel type of small batches where each batch is different and unique, you know, different than what a lot of batches are where you're looking for consistency. Mm-hmm. And we kind of sat down, started working on it, and I said, you know, I'd like to be a part of it besides just selling barrels and, you know, being a source for them. So they brought us on, so we partnered up. The distillery actually has ownership in Hidden Barn. And then a little bit after that is when Jackie Zykan come on board. So Jackie's been fantastic. It's incredible to work with her, and watching her taste barrels and put them together is unreal.
Does everyone know who Jackie Zykan is? Fill them in.
Jackie Zykan was the former master taster, master blender for Old Forester. She left there, I guess, about 3 months ago.
That's right.
And come on to Hidden Barn full time. She is an owner in that brand as well.
In Hidden Barn?
In Hidden Barn.
Excellent. Yeah, Jackie, I think we all will agree, did just yeoman's work to put Old Forester back on the map where it belongs. I mean, it's always fantastic whiskey. She's the one that made it even better and pushed it out to the crowds, and it's exactly where it should be. Caleb, tell us a little bit about your job and why you're in here. Why I invited you here.
Well, I don't know why you invited me here.
I like your booze. Good enough.
Well, I mean, that's the reason we're all here is because we love bourbon. For me, it all started out with a fascination back when I was first becoming aware of the industry because I didn't grow up in an alcohol-rich environment. I was on a dairy farm growing up in a dry county.
Yeah, lactose won't ferment.
What's that?
Lactose won't ferment.
No. Well, it will, but that's all.
For yogurt, right? Maybe.
Yeah. Very different products. But I grew up in a culture without bourbon within my household. But when I was in school, I fell in love with the science that surrounded the manufacturing of bourbon. So I started going out, and is every distillery tour I could get on, everybody who I considered a master within the industry, even if they don't have master next to their title. It was shadowing them, it was learning from them, and I just had some amazing people who kind of took me under my wing, or me under their wing, and they really just kind of nurtured me along. Some of those people are right here in Bardstown. Pete Kamer, who's former across the street
the
over
busiest consultant in the industry, I think.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. But he loves it.
Yeah.
So he was over at Barton Brands for a very long time. Randy Allender, who's with Jim Beam for a very long time. And then, of course, Rob Sherman, who's Vendome Copper and Brass Works. those three gentlemen took me under their wing. They showed me the industry, and that's when I was actually able to get on board with Kentucky Peerless on some of the recommendations. And I have no idea why they turned over a distillery to a 22, turning 23-year-old, but it worked out.
Worked out well.
That was kind of the my start into it.
And you did Moonshine University as well, too, right?
Yep, I went through the Moonshine U course. Phenomenal people, and that's how I became exposed to those guys who became my mentors.
Royce Neeley went through a Moonshine course, but it wasn't one that required much paperwork, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. See my old man floating around over there? I'm pretty sure he put moonshine in my baby bottle when I was born. I kind of came up a different route. There was plenty of booze around our family.
Yes. Never really thought about that point of difference.
Yeah.
Talk about where you guys came from. You've told me the story, but I don't remember all the details. And not because we were drinking moonshine, which is like 2 years ago or so when you gave me the family story.
We're from Owsley County in eastern Kentucky. Still got a lot of family members down there, but and they may or may not still be making it illegally, you know. But I can neither confirm nor deny. But yeah, family come from Owsley County, and my dad left in '88, moved up to Sparta, where we're at now, to start a construction company. So he built our entire distillery there, and still doing a lot of construction for me, getting ready to build another rick house, and family's been there ever since.
Now you have a double pot still system, right?
I do double and triple.
And so talk about that technique a little bit, and of course we're going to talk about column still with Caleb. Tell us why that affects your whiskey and your kind of philosophy of making whiskey, because I know you're all about that pot.
I am. I'm a big pot still advocate. I love, and of course I grew up on a pot still. You know, I've always been around a pot still, so I'm really comfortable with it. But what I love about the pot still is the versatility. So with the pot, if I don't like the flavor that's coming out here, or I don't like a flavor that's coming out there, all I have to do is redirect a valve and I can cut that out. Not so much the same with the continuous distillation. So that's one of the big things I like about a pot. I also love, I mean, you can get a lot more oily, you know, just a lot more body to a bourbon.
Viscosity and mouthfeel.
A lot easier on a pot still than you can a column. Not that you can't do it on a column, because you can, and Caleb proves that all the time. But, you know, it's a lot easier on that pot still.
It takes a while, though. It's a little bit slower, isn't it? And got one batch. That's all you can run, right?
There is nothing efficient about a pot still at all. I've always been a big fan of, Dick Stowe gave me a quote one time that the best whiskey is made from inherently inefficient processes, and I believe in that. But, yeah, you know, the pot still's inefficient. It requires me to be glued there. Like, if you go to Neely today, my still ain't running because I'm not there to make the cuts off of it. So I have to be glued to that still, and good thing I love love the booze biz, because I'm in there a lot.
What's the production like there? Like, how many barrels would you fill in a day?
We're making around, right now we're pushing out about 3 barrels a day. So we run 2 600-gallon cooks and do 2 600-gallon strips, and then 1 finish every single day.
Which keeps you busy. I'm
very
sure.
busy. Yep, very busy.
Caleb, talk about the fundamentals of a column still and why it's different from a pot.
Well, and the important thing you said there is different, because they're going to produce very different spirits, both bourbon, both rye, both whiskeys, all that's great, but they're good for different reasons. I don't think Royce or either one would dog each other's products.
No.
They're very, very special for their field. For us, when we're doing a column still, where we're not doing things on a batch-by-batch basis, there's not the time-based cuts that you would see on his still, where he's having to babysit it, watch, and see when flavors either appear or disappear from the distillate. So in that regard, yes, column stills are simple as far as this is in, this is out. When you're talking about a column still, you still have to make those cuts, but you have to make them based on temperatures rather than time. So what I'm able to do coming off the column, you only get it hot enough to carry off your heads and your hearts and a little bit of tails. You leave it hot enough going through that first condenser to where you're only condensing your hearts. And then when you run it through the doubler, you're just doing that final polish where you're separating out the tails from the hearts. And that's honestly, in my opinion, the most crucial cut when you're making whiskey, because if you want to play it safe, you distill up at a very high proof and you make whiskey that's very, very barrel focused, because there's not a whole lot of character outside of that. At Peerless, and I know with Royce, we're pushing that envelope to try to get as close to that tails cut as possible, because that's where you're going to harvest off a lot of the grains, a lot of the breads, the fruits, the florals, the cake, all these amazing things that are just across the fence away from some things that are rather offensive taste-wise.
Right.
So you can play it safe if you're not going to really push the envelope, but we choose to make the foolish decision of pushing the envelope.
Starting with sweet mashing.
Yeah.
Right? Talk about the difference between that and sour mash.
So when you're talking sour mashing, it's way pretty much everything's made. Sour mashing, you're going to take a piece of a prior fermentation as a starter for the next. And it's similar like sourdough bread, where it produces that sour, gritty, grainy note, which is synonymous with a lot of really good whiskey. Trouble is when you go to distill it, if you try being rather aggressive, the way we talked about before, you end up with an overpowering sour, gritty, mashy note. So you have to distill it typically at a higher proof. And in addition to stripping out and nullifying, taming a little bit of that sour mash note, you also have a lot of collateral damage where a lot of the grain, the beautiful grasses, the herbs are also tamped down pretty heavily. So
Right.
starting with a sweet mash, you're starting with fresh corn, fresh rye, fresh barley, first generation yeast, and it produces this extremely sweet, very floral beer that then when we go to distill it, we don't have that sour mash note to work around. That allows us to, like I said, be really aggressive and harvest a lot of those auxiliary notes. That coupled with the fact that we use a low barrel entry proof and then serve everything at barrel strength means that those nuances come through very powerfully within our whiskey.
What is your barrel entry proof? 110?
We go in at 107.
That's low.
Yeah, it's not super efficient. As he was saying, sometimes the least efficient methods are the most flavor efficient.
Absolutely. So, and if I'm correct, you guys do a little less than 30 barrels a day? Is that right?
No. We do
Nope.
like 60 barrels a week.
A week?
A week.
Wow.
So, yeah, we're doing a little over 10, maybe 12 barrels a day, depending on the mash bill. So, in the grand scheme of things, we're tiny. But we kind of punch above our weight based upon the flavor and the qualities that we produce.
So, are you guys sour mashing or sweet mashing, Royce?
We sweet mash as well.
And you guys probably don't even have the volume. I think, Caleb, you told me you don't have the volume to really sour mash effectively, right? To have enough back set to do that right?
We can, we choose not to. When you are a smaller player trying to do sour mash, you run into a lot of opportunities for contamination to actually undo some of the good that sour mash is innately supposed to provide. So it's a combination of reasons behind our sweet mashing technique.
How tough is it for a distillery of either size here to make a footprint in the busiest market for bourbon in 40 years?
Well, it depends where you're wanting to make your footprint.
Right.
If it's in people such as yourself who actually are connoisseurs who are crazy enough to show up to a bourbon festival, it's rather easy because you all care about what is going into the product, and that's something that Mayor just keeps coming off. That's something that's easy to do. As long as you go through the methods and put together a product that you can stand behind, generally other people stand behind it. Now, it means that you got to work really hard when you get out into the actual marketplace, though, as far as communicating this to liquor stores, bartenders, distributors, making sure that they understand your passion and the passion that the people are going to find in your whiskey.
And they have to find that it's a worthwhile investment for them to buy that
Yeah.
and take up shelf space.
Yep.
How hard is it for you now that here's your 4 year? Now you're really wanting to go out into the broader market. Stiff headwinds for you?
I mean, I guess biggest piece of advice I can give is partner with Jackie's Can. Because, I mean, it's pretty much immediately everything we put out is sold out. I mean, with Hidden Barn, we've been selling everything out in about 30 minutes from the time that we launch it, which has been really cool. But, to make a footprint and get out there, the big thing for me is doing just like what we're doing right now, Steve. It's getting out, it's talking to people, it's talking to the consumers, it's educating, it's just, trying to get in front of as many people as you can in the best way that you can, A lot of times I look for things that don't necessarily cost me money to do it, but I can volunteer. I like to get on podcasts. Anything like that really helps a lot.
That kind of exposure, those free, what do they call it, impressions?
That's
I guess?
right, yeah. Organic.
Organic. I mean, does the whiskey press like me annoy you after a while? Or you're like, oh, shut up, guys. Quit calling me.
Not really, because most everybody's passionate about it. It's not getting the same questions time after time after time. It's just something where you can actually have a discussion about something that you love.
Talk about some of your favorite products you've made, Royce, because you got a long list of stuff that you've made.
I do. One of the coolest products that we made is that absinthe. There it is, yep. We've won 2 double golds with it. There it is, yeah.
All right, so explain to the crowd what that is in case they don't know.
So absinthe is it's a botanical-based spirit. We use 6 different types of herbs inside of it. The main ones being anise, fennel, and wormwood. But absinthe was a spirit made in Europe. It's always traditionally been made in Europe. It was banned for a long time. There is an aura about it that it makes you hallucinate from Thujone content. I can neither confirm nor deny, but no, it doesn't make you hallucinate. But it's a cool spirit. Yeah, black licorice is a predominant flavor off of it. We balance ours out with lemon balm as well. But it's been a really cool spirit to make. It was something I never really thought I would make. And I was just kind of playing around with it one day, and we use my family's moonshine as the base, which makes it really unique. It's the only absinthe in the world that has moonshine as the base inside of it. So it's got a cane sugar and a corn derivative inside of there. So I think it's pretty cool.
And so do you run that again through like a gin basket to get contact with the botanicals, or do you macerate?
No, yeah, I macerate it. So I do it the old school way. So we'll take all the herbs and put them inside of the pot, mix it up, let it macerate for at least 24 hours. Most of the time I push it for 48, and then it's distilled again that way. And when we distill it the second time, we want the least amount of reflux possible. So I want to bring as much oil as I can over with it. That's a big sign of quality with an absinthe. If it'll loose the right way, which loosing the ouzo effect, when you add water to it, it'll cause the oils in it to fall out of solution and turn cloudy, which is a sign of quality. So the better it'll do that, or it'll do that better if you bring more oils over in the distillation.
So no refluxing, falling back down
That's
into
right.
the pot.
We don't want it to
going right over.
We want it to carry over. That's right.
That's cool. I think I had your. I was up there with Distilled Living. Did we have that absinthe?
If you didn't, we'll hit the bottle here in a little bit.
Well, well, let's do that. Yeah, I would love to taste it. I mean, absinthe's pretty darn memorable.
Yeah.
That's what you forget.
Well, it'll make you forget.
What's the proof on that?
120.
Yes, they could do that. They could do that.
Wow.
Caleb, what's your favorite?
Probably the most recent innovation that we worked on was actually released yesterday morning. So we do a double oak bourbon that last year got us Whiskey Advocate #8 whiskey in the world. And this year's version of it was dropped yesterday. So when we first started making whiskey, occasionally you come across a barrel that inherently has a flaw. It's got a stave that's bowed, or there's a crack that's formed, or there's some leak that you just can't fix. When you see this, you obviously don't want your whiskey to hit the ground and go to waste, so you transfer it out of that barrel and into another new charred white oak barrel. That's how we started. And we do everything blind as far as our tasting and grading at Peerless, so when the barrel reaches 4.5 years of age or 5, we'll pull a small sample from it, but we do all this blind, so we don't want to know where it was aged. The specifics around it are just strictly quality-wise, is it pass-fail. And we started discovering that a lot of these barrels that we thought were single barrel quality, when we go to mark them in the field, they were double oaks, ones that had spent time in 2 different barrels. So when we released a couple of single barrels, they sold out before we could even get our heads on straight. And we had to figure out how on earth we can scale this process. So now what we do is we go through all this barrel population. We identify barrels that are particularly prominent in the herbs and spices and all the different things that it's going to get from the distillate. That way, when we double oak it, it doesn't cause the barrel to become unbalanced with the barrel character being too prominent, but rather raises the bar to balance out a lot of the predominant distillate characters. So the small batch of that, it dropped yesterday. It's over at the booth. Highly recommend you all going and trying it.
Who's been over so far? Tried it?
There we go.
Good. This guy's smiling like he's had a couple of them. Feeling good.
Ooh, the rum finished bourbon. That's another new one that we just did. We released it a couple weeks back. And we took what would have been a small batch of bourbon. We finished it for a whole year in these Caribbean rum casks, not like Captain Morgan or Parrot Bay or any of the rums that you all may have been exposed to, but rather the dark and molasses and salty and earthy. And it's imparted a really nice character depth to our bourbon.
That's really cool.
Love it? Yeah.
Love it?
Me too.
Excellent. Excellent. Let's talk about the future a little bit. I mean, if you're selling your hidden barn stuff lickety split, you got to create that demand and create frustration at the same time.
Yeah.
Any plans to expand your distillery to add capacity?
Yeah, we're putting in a second fermenting room right now, so it's almost done. That'll allow us to jump up. If I run 6 days a week, it'll allow us an average of 6 days a week. It'll allow us to make somewhere around 11 to 1,200 barrels a year at that point. So that fermenting room should be done in the next month and a half, and then we'll start laying down. That's pretty much going to be used exclusively for hidden barn, and we'll run a second shift at the distillery at that point.
So you're still just running a single shift right now?
Yeah, we do everything right now in an 8 to 10 hour shift.
Is there anybody there to watch the stills when you're gone? You said no.
My grandpa's in there. You met Papaw, didn't you?
I did, absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Met him.
He's in there. You can't run him out of that place.
That's cool. So So are you gonna have to? Man, I know you don't have. You're the marketing team, right? I mean, you don't have Salesforce out there doing any of that, right?
Well, I got Weiniger and them working on that. So that's Nate. We call him the assistant to the assistant brand ambassador, wherever he's at over there. But yeah, him and Dankner are working pretty hard out on the Salesforce, especially in Colorado. We've got boots on the ground there as well. And then they spend quite a bit of time in Kentucky going and meeting with distributors. Of course, we got Jackie here to help out with that as well. So that's been the Salesforce behind it. With Neely, we've been very lucky. I mean, once again, we're a small distillery, but we sell everything so fast. I haven't distributed in 2 years. I mean, we just sell everything right out the gift shop.
No kidding.
I sell through 3 single barrels a week out of my gift shop.
Oh my gosh, it's incredible.
It's been all right.
It's been all right. What's the future for you guys? I mean, you guys have a lot of broad market penetration, don't you? Like, how many states are you in now?
What are we in? 42? 45. Wow, we've grew. I'm looking out at Cordell, our mastermind marketing and strategist.
I see him now.
Got to have a guy in the crowd.
That's all right. Right. So, I mean, what is it? Just deeper penetration in each of those states or overseas? What happens?
For me, it's always just the next batch. Some people look out months and months and years in the future, and often if you look too far, you overlook the near term. So for us, it's just one step at a time, one batch at a time, one bottle at a time. Next thing that we're working on is actually a small batch of rye followed by a small batch of bourbon, and it's just each one is important. I don't look much past that. We do have some exciting launches coming later this year that I don't think I'm at liberty to talk about just yet. So keep an eye out for Kentucky Peerless this fall.
So yeah, Caleb, who's one of the nicest guys in the business, which is saying a lot because there are a lot of nice guys in this business. He asked me, a couple months ago at the Bourbon Society meeting, he said, "How'd you like our double oaks?" It's like, I like the other one better. And he's so cool. He's like, and we understand that everybody has different palates. I said, I like this level of oak, not a double level of oak.
Yeah.
But look, I mean, this stuff sells like hotcakes. I mean, that's the cool thing about this business, that everybody has their own preferences. You know,
and that's the thing. If we sit down and we talk about like how hot we like our chicken wings, it's very rare that you're going to find two people who are just perfectly in sync. Do you like horseradish? Do you not like horseradish? Do you like licorice? Do you not like licorice? Everybody has a different palate, and it's just appreciating the differences.
Absolutely.
And that's one of the coolest things when we're actually sitting and grading through barrels. Or I'll tell you what, actually in our single barrel program, it's even more prominent. For us, when we do single barrels, what we do is we promote usually 3 or 4 different samples that are very, very different on the flavor wheel. We curate for consistent quality, but purposely make sure that the flavor profiles are all over the board, pushing the limits of what you would actually think would come from a single mash bill, single maturation style. And when you have a group of people who sit down in that selection and they passionately fight tooth and toenail with one another over which barrel is best, it's because none of them are best. It's just that they're different. And that's the cool thing about bourbon in general. Like, you can go around here and there's a ton of amazing products that are all amazing for different reasons. It's just finding what works with your palate.
I got to say, you guys really get it in that regard, that you bring a variety, that these things are still clearly peerless barrels, but they're clearly off profile. Because that's what I think barrel pickers are looking for. A lot of us are anyway, that we want something unique that's going to taste like just ours. And the Kentucky Bourbon Festival pick that we did, I guess it's over in the store, had this real strong corn nuts note.
Yep.
It was like, first I was like, I'm not sure. A couple tastes later, like, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's decidedly off profile, and that's going to be our signature.
Well,
you know,
how boring would it be if you tried a single barrel that tasted just like our small batch? It wouldn't be a rewarding experience.
There are some distilleries that deliberately put out those barrels in single barrels, and it's like, why? Why do that?
Not our style.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you so much for not being your style. I like to think that a lot of the barrels we picked this time are really unique. So.
Nice.
All right, guys. We got a couple minutes before we go. Who has some questions for these geniuses? Yes, sir. So the question was, what was the first bourbons that they fell in love with, and what started them on their bourbon journeys? Go ahead, Caleb.
Starting me on the journey, again, was the fascination around the science of how it's made. Before I developed a palate, I knew I wanted to be a distiller, which is saying a lot, because when I was actually, you mentioned going through the Moonshine U course, I had to have an amazing poker face, or I must have, because it all tasted like kerosene at the time. It took me a while to develop my palate, but again, I grew up in a household that didn't feature alcohol. I was a goody two-shoes, so I didn't drink until after 21. So it's just, it just takes time. So for me, when pieces started falling into place, that was just, I loved the Wild Turkey 101 product because for one, it's made by the great Jimmy Russell. I mean, you got to look up to your rock stars. I mean, it's just how it is. But it was the complexity, the depth, as far as you're looking against the benchmark products, as far as like what their brand standard is, I felt that it carried a lot more depth of flavor, character, the oak. I thought it was an extraordinarily technical sound product. And then it was really cool for me to go in and dissect, well, they used a low barrel entry proof, and they come off the still lowered proof. They serve at a higher general strength than a lot of the other brands out there. And so it was picking up, and it was kind of the first one that started shaping my philosophies around kind of the how it's made and what I wanted to employ at Peerless.
How about you, Royce?
Well, I wasn't a goody two-shoes, and I was drinking well before I was 21. No, I know you guys are having a hard time believing that. Yeah, everybody's shocked. But I tell you, so back when I was in college, me and my buddies, we were strapping for cash and digging dimes out of the couch and whatnot just to try to go down and get another fifth or whatever we could get hold of. It was Benchmark, actually. I swear to it. Before the bartenders and everybody started figuring out what Benchmark was and everything like that, we were buying Benchmark for $7.99 a fifth down at Wildcats Liquor in Lexington. That was the one. That was the one that really started. And I started out like most people. It was bourbon and Coke, and it was probably heavier Coke than it was bourbon. And then it was more like a 50-50 mix, and then eventually it went to drinking straight bourbon. After that, I tried, Woodford and some things like that, and then it just kind of took off from there. And then obviously when I got into distilling, one of the cool ones is Peerless. I mean, I was trying a lot of Peerless single barrels early on, and I was like, wow, the sweet mashing process works. There's a lot of different cool flavors you can get, and you don't always have to do the norm, right, of trying to make everything taste the same. Just like everybody out here, they like single barrels. I also like single barrels, which is why we make only a single barrel strength product, because I think that's the best way to enjoy bourbon, and I like the different nuances that are produced in the process, and I like to be able to taste those. What's that?
The question was, what else did he do while he was at UK?
We bootlegged a little bit. Hey, allegedly. Allegedly.
He will neither confirm nor deny.
Yeah, allegedly. Take the tour. That's right.
All right, guys. Thanks so much for your time. We really appreciate you doing this. We also appreciate Great Western Malting for sponsoring the Bourbon 30 stage. We all love those sponsors. Take care of this festival and put on a great show for you guys. So thanks again. We'll see you in a few minutes.
Thanks, Steve.
Thanks, Hoss. See you, Caleb.